Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk. We are your hosts, Southborough Youth and Family Services. My name is Sarah Castle. I am the Director of Southborough Youth and Family. And with me this morning, we have Megan Island, who's our Assistant Director. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
We have Shannon Knyman, who is our Program Coordinator. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. And we're so excited to welcome back Dr. Elizabeth Englander, who has been on the show with us before. We were talking about your amazing book, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. You actually have another one that we're going to talk about. So I have to make sure I have all of your information correct here. So Dr. Englander is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center at Bridgewater State University. And as I mentioned, she's the co-author of the Insanely Awesome Pandemic Playbook. And we'll be talking with her in a couple of minutes about your second book, which you're co-authoring, which is called the Insanely Awesome Post-Pandemic Playbook. Did I get all of that right?
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's start our morning with our usual coffee toast. No, not coffee toast, coffee talk toast. Yes. Some soggy toast. Doesn't that sound delicious? Cheers. I have a Buffalo Bills coffee travel mug today.
Nice.
I'm very proud of my Buffalo Bills. Good morning, everyone. And I actually have coffee in here. I'm not just pretending to drink something.
Good.
Nice. Very good.
I often do that. I toast with my empty coffee mug and then I pretend to take a drink just because I feel like I need to for solidarity's sake.
Right. But then you cop to it every week. So
I know. And then I
everybody knows that
I'm not
it's an
actually
empty cup.
drinking anything, anyone. So silly. So how is everyone? It's a beautiful day already. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping outside. And yet Friday, we had a snow day. My school district canceled school and I sent my preschooler off to school with snow pants and mittens and a hat. It was bizarre. That's New England for us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did
Yep.
anybody do anything fun this weekend?
No.
I wish I could say I did. I was actually, I got outside a lot, especially yesterday. I'm paying for it today though. I have, I raked my front yard. We got rid of most of the leaves before all the snow came this winter, but to sort of aerate the grass and, all that good stuff. And my back hurts, my arms hurt. I had trouble getting dressed this morning. It was awful. And holding on to the rake. I've got blisters everywhere. I'm a mess.
Own hands.
Yes. Well, anyway, let's talk about our show. Actually, today is the first of a series that we're hoping to bring to Coffee Talk. So we hear from parents a lot about questions like, is this normal? Should I be worried about this for my child and their age? And there's so much development that happens over the course of a person's entire life that we thought it would be great to go back to Psychology 101 and talk about Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. To sort of talk about what's typical for different stages of development, what, those arguments that you're having with your teenager might just be part of what's supposed to happen and it feels worrisome, but in fact it may actually be exactly what we would expect. So today we have, as we mentioned, Dr. Elizabeth Englander on with us today to start off our series, and we're talking about school age. And so that's a particular age group that you work quite often with. Is that right, Dr. Englander?
Actually, yes and no. I'm really a researcher, so I don't do therapy with kids.
Sure.
I do research on kids. So I look at how they're developing, and the advantage of that is that you get to look at thousands and thousands, and some of my studies, we have tens of thousands of kids,
Sure.
but so you really get to see sort of what's typical and what's not typical, and
Yeah.
which is
Maybe that's
actually
a
very
good-
reassuring.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's a good place to start then. Maybe you could tell us a little bit. We shared, your title and your that you're the co-author of these books, but maybe you could start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and tell us more about the books that you're working on.
So the main books that I've been working on are books for the pandemic. And so that's been helping schools and kids cope with everything. I think this is a seismic psychological event for children. It really is. I mean, it is for everybody. It is for everybody. My work, I do kids, so that's what I focus on. But I think it's really, if you think about how much children do well under routine and stability and things being the same, and they love to hear the same joke over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and they love to do the same things over and over and over again, and this is all very normal, but this pandemic really turned everything upside down in the world of kids. So it's really, I think that's really why we're seeing such a dramatic increase in anxiety and depression in children. But I don't think that's, and I think it's something kids will adjust as we get back to whatever post-pandemic life is going to look like. But I think it's going to take a while. I think we all have to sort of be ready to help kids and sort of over the long haul. Because I think for a lot of kids, I just talked to a mom the other day whose daughter went back to school about 2 weeks ago. This is out in Colorado. And, she got a phone call from the school saying your daughter is too anxious. She needs to come home. This is a girl who never had any problems with anxiety before the pandemic. Just going back really worried her. She'd been told for a year not to go outside, not to see other people. She'd been told that she had to be careful because of her parents and her grandparents. And then suddenly everybody says, okay, back to school. And she was really worried, about what was going on. So I don't think parents have to worry whether that's normal per se. I wouldn't worry if I was a parent and my child was really anxious. I mean, I am a parent, but I wouldn't worry if my child was really anxious right now, that there was something fundamentally wrong with them. I would just feel like they're coping with a very weird and difficult situation.
Sure. So is that some of the information that you're talking about in this post-pandemic playbook that you're working on? Tell us a little bit more about the book.
So the post-pandemic book, is it okay here? I'll tell you what, is it okay if I show what it looks like?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just show people what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And it has a different cover than the first book. And really the purpose of this book is different than the other one. It's to help kids adjust back into what life is going to be like after this pandemic. So it talks about things like coping mechanisms for over anticipation, sort of understanding that we're all excited to get back to life, but life wasn't perfect before. It's not going to be perfect now. And it's good to sort of, take a deep breath and remember that. It's good to recognize when you yourself feel ambivalent about things. So you might be really excited to get back to school, but at the same time, when you're actually ready to go that first morning, you might feel really anxious, or you might feel really anxious in school. You might worry about your parents back home, if they can cope. You might worry about what if the virus is sort of out there still. And so we talk about that. We talk about friends. We talk about reducing screens, because that's going to be a big thing, right? Everything's got to kind of reset again. And we talk about the vaccine. What does that mean? You know, why is the vaccine? Why is everybody excited about a vaccine? What is a vaccine? That was a real challenge to explain a vaccine and how it works in a way that a 9 or 10-year-old could both understand and find really funny and amusing. That took us a while.
Sounds like a great resource for kids.
Yeah, and you know,
explain
and these are things that people have asked us, like, you know, the kids are like, if this vaccine's so great, why aren't kids getting it?
Yeah.
And so all that's sort of in the book. And my co-author, Katie Covina, and I are actually working today on the guide for adults, which we're just going to post on the book's website. So anybody will be able to download it for free. So that's going to be out soon. And that's going to give people things like summaries of the chapter and discussion questions. So like if you're teaching a class and you want to talk about things, gives you ideas of where you can go, and lots of activities for kids.
Great.
They really seem to like the activities. So understandably in this age group.
Right. So before we like jump into more about, you know, what's typical, what, you know, all of that, if we're talking about psychosocial, what exactly does that mean?
The term psychosocial just means sort of how kids are doing in terms of their feelings and in terms of their relationships with other kids. So if you think about how kids develop, what most people think about is things like, okay, when did my baby learn to walk? When did they learn to read? We tend to think of sort of these milestones. And psychosocial development's a little different because it doesn't necessarily have milestones per se, but what it has is, what you're looking at there is you're looking at things like how children are playing. You're looking at how they're sleeping and eating and their mood and their interest in things. And all of that changes as time goes on. I mean, some of it changes. So for example, you might have a 18-month-old and you take them to your friend's house. Your friend also has a baby. They'll just sit next to each other and play. They won't interact very much. That's completely normal for that age. But if they're 10 years old or 5 years old or 7 years old, you sort of would like to see them be interested in each other and interested in playing together. But some things with kids, like some measures of psychosocial health never change, you know. So you want to have children who eat. You want to have children who sleep. And problems with these things are very, very common, especially the sleeping, honestly, very common. So it's not like a red flag, but that's kind of the nature of kids this age, I think, is that, you know, they run into bumps and that's to be expected. And part of the job of being a parent is sort of dealing with the bumps. And that's kind of, I think, what this pandemic is like for kids this age. It's a bump. It's not necessarily a disaster, but it's something that people are going to have to deal with. It's not likely to be nothing for lots and lots and lots of kids. I don't know if that helps give you a feeling of what psychosocial is. Yeah. It's actually, you know, some pediatricians will ask you about psychosocial stuff and some won't. So when you take your child for a well baby visit, there are some pediatricians who will say things like, are they making friends? Things like that. There's some who won't ask those questions. They'll just ask, are they walking and talking and that kind of stuff. But I think you really have to think about like social development and emotional development as something, it's a skill. It's like arithmetic or anything else. And sometimes kids need a little extra help. And that's just not a big deal. And it's not the end of the world. And I think more and more people are recognizing that.
So for the age that we're talking about today, school age children, what kinds of things are part of psychosocial development?
for some kids, there's very different rates of development. So for example, things like being aware of your feelings, that's really different between kids.
Mhm.
As we all know, some people get into adulthood and they're totally unaware of their feelings. Like it just sort of never gets there. There are other kids who are really kind of self-aware at a young age. So it really differs between kids. A big part of psychosocial development, honestly, though, is social skills. And it's your ability to make a friend, it's your ability to interact with people in a way so that they like you, your ability to not sort of be aggressive or antisocial, but to be friendly and to just play. And that is something that kids today struggle with much more than they used to. And that's partly the adult's fault. No, that's entirely the adult's fault because we've set up a world where they don't get much practice. We used to have a world where kids constantly played. And I don't know about you guys, but I used to just go out and play. My mother didn't follow me around in the street. I just went out and played. And when I was tired, I went home. Or when it was dinner time, I went home. You know, today people just don't do that anymore. Kids tend to stay home. So, you know, there's a really interesting study done up in Maine where they followed children where they played like 40 years ago. And they actually mapped it, physically mapped where the kids tended to go to play in this small town in Maine. And then they went back like 35 years later, or maybe it was 30 years later, to see where the next generation of kids, the children of these people, went to play. And the geography of where they played had just shrunk incredibly. And the really interesting thing was when they asked parents, well, you used to go out and play, you know, here or there. Why don't you let your kids do that? Parents often said, well, it's not safe, or I'm worried.
Right.
But when you actually looked at measures of safety, they hadn't changed at all in this town.
Yeah.
Not at all. So part of this is parental anxiety, I think. But a big part of psychosocial development in school age kids is their peers. Yeah, it was a really interesting study. Really, really interesting study.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the this morning the particular stage we're talking about, and it talks about, what is it, industry versus inferiority. If we're really hearkening back to what's outlined here.
Yeah.
And that the virtue that we're looking for development is competency. So I imagine that has to do with feeling, you know, I think of confidence, I think of, you know, feeling, you know, comfortable approaching your peers and navigating the world more independently.
And just generally, I think, feeling like you can do things.
Right.
But think about this. If you're raising a child and you're a parent who wants them to achieve very big things at a very young age, what does that child learn? You want them to learn to read when they're 4. They're not developmentally ready, and so they fail at it. What does that do to their self-confidence? What does that do to their sense of industry? You know, there's risks. You're taking a risk when you really push children of this age. And the risk is that you're really going to undermine, you know, part of their self. I mean, these kinds of problems, you know, we see them too in all the bullying prevention work we do, where, you know, we go to schools and they tell all the children that if they ever see bullying happening, which doesn't really actually make much sense, but that's a different topic. But if they ever actually see bullying happening, what they should do is get in the middle of the situation and confront the bully and tell them to stop. That's a pretty tall order for a 7-year-old. Most adults are not able to confront aggressive, dangerous people. And we're asking little kids to do it. So what happens to a child who finds themselves unable to do that? They've been told that's what they're supposed to do. So you really have to think about, people are well-meaning, but you really have to think about what you sort of want kids to do and push them to do and expect them to do. And you want it to be challenging, but not so challenging that lots and lots and lots of them are going to fail. It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't, if you think about it. So that's what we mean by industry. We want kids to feel like I can learn things, I can develop, I can master things. And, every kid's gonna be terrible at some things. I mean, when my kids were little, they couldn't pedal a bike for the life of them. I mean, I don't know why. Obviously, I have some pedaling impaired gene that I passed on to them. I can ride a bike, but, it's like every kid has things they just aren't any good at. Maybe they're not good at tying their shoes, or they're not good, or they're very shy and they're not so good at introducing themselves. Like, it's okay. But, I think it's very hard for parents when they get anxious and they feel like, oh my God, my kid can't pedal his tricycle. The Supreme Court is out, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
You think about, sorry, I was just going to
No, go
say, I hear so many parents asking about things like potty training. They're like, why aren't they doing it? And this idea that, just a reminder to people when things are supposed to happen, that it would make sense that competency is going to develop at this particular stage, coming off of really depending a lot more on your immediate needs being taken care of by your parents and being surrounded by adults all the time. And, what we'll eventually be talking about early childhood development, from babies up till, preschoolers. But I guess it's a good reminder for parents that, kids will do it when they're ready. It's a natural part of their development.
Absolutely.
They're not there yet.
Absolutely. I was just talking with a young mother just the other day about this. She was talking about potty training her son. And I said, I feel like our society manufactures these sort of anxieties for parents. And it's so unnecessary. It's just completely unnecessary. Unless your child's like going to a preschool and it's the only option for their preschool and the preschool requires them to be potty trained, then, really this is just not an issue. And I say that as somebody who raised 3 kids, none of whom were early potty trainers. And I myself was anxious about it, sort of, particularly with the first one. I think I sort of threw in the towel after that. But, I really wish that we gave parents more support. And we said, don't worry about this. This is something you're thinking about now, but in the scheme of this child's life, it's not a big deal. And they will master it.
Right.
I remember
go.
I had that feeling. I'm like, I know he's not going to go to college in a diaper. I feel pretty sure. I feel pretty sure that I can probably just wait until this happens, until he's ready.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's totally right. That's totally right. So it's like, take a deep breath. We, there's too much pressure and anxiety on parents today. And I think that leads to things like parents being so competitive instead of supporting each other, which is actually what's really helpful. And if you think about parents you talk to, what's sort of more supportive and reassuring? Somebody who says, oh, let me tell you about my perfect, fabulous child, or somebody who, meets you up for a cup of coffee and says, oh my God, that kid's driving me nuts. Who's the real person there that you're going to have a relationship and get support from? So there's not enough sort of acknowledgement of the ups and downs. But I think that I don't mean to keep coming back to the pandemic, but that is definitely the elephant in the room. And I think it's going to be, I hope we don't get into a situation where parents start to get competitive over saying, oh, my child's fine. you know, they're not sleeping, but they're fine. And those kinds of problems, which I think are going to exacerbate the situation.
And I would imagine too that the pandemic has been difficult when we talk about like the school-aged age, that, you know, this is an age where they're learning how to do things. They're after school, they find these passions that they want to master and they feel so good about it. Or even when we're talking about the parents that the parents don't have that support, that we're not able, like you said, to go out for coffee and support one another. So do you feel like there are parts of the pandemic that have made it difficult for kids to grow and find that confidence?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a lot of their learning opportunities were reduced. And, you know, even among parents, I think it's true that the pandemic made things like being able to get support from another parent harder because it would have to be virtual. But I think it was hard before. I think we were already making it hard on ourselves. I remember talking to a mom about, this is a mom who posts a lot of information and photographs of her children. And I said to her, you know, you really want to think about why you're doing that, because you're really giving away an incredible amount of personal information about them. And she said to me, it's all I have. This is all I have.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought, oh God, you know, what a world where that's all you have. And you know, I don't know how, and that was even before the pandemic hit. So I'm sure that was all exacerbated by it. So it's the old thing, right? Healthy parents, healthy kids. So part of this whole picture has to be making sure parents have some support. And they relax about things like toilet training, which don't matter. Don't matter. Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to imagine those meeting those developmental milestones, you know, as a parent myself, knowing that somehow it becomes a reflection on your success as a parent.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so I think it's really critical that we keep that in mind, that who is this for?
It's
No.
true. It's true. But I think if parents made more of an effort to support each other, they would learn that it's not really a reflection, because your kids have issues and my kids have issues and everybody's kids have issues and children have issues. And that's what it is to grow up. And so, you know, it might make you feel less like that, like it's a reflection on you, and more like this is just part of the process of being a parent. And you know, then you might relax a little bit more, because I think you're totally right. I think people do feel like it's a reflection of that. And some people have it easy, but most people don't. You know, most people have things here and there, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. I had two thoughts in response to that. One was, I'm happy that we're doing the entire lifespan for this series, because people watching might be like, oh, all I need to know is the stuff about how, you know, how to raise my kids. But, you know, we're almost talking here about, you know, a way to help your kids is to make sure you're aware that you're actually focused on their development, and, you know, that not on purpose, but that we inadvertently are actually addressing our own developmental needs as adults. So we will be talking in a subsequent episode about psychosocial development for adults as well, because we do need to know that too. And my last question for you today was going to be about, as family members or parents of school-age children who are going through their usual development and this development in the midst of a pandemic, you know, how can we best support a child going through this stage? I bet part of your answer is, taking care of yourself as a parent. And,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um,
Yeah, I think there are sort of two big guidelines. The first guideline is that this is not the time to come hard and heavy on the rules. This is the time to think about being more flexible. So I'm sure that, most parents have screen time rules and things like that. But if you want to put in a video so you can go take a bath, that's perfectly fine. Everybody's very stressed. And so it really is okay to cut yourself a little slack and to cut the rules a little slack. And I think the second rule is to just pay attention in sort of a kind and interested way. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to do all the things. They don't have to have clarinet lessons and French lessons, and you don't have to take lavish vacations, and none of that is necessary, really. What's necessary is to be interested.
Yeah.
Just be interested. Ask them how things are going. Ask them what's up. Ask them what they did in school, even though they may, it doesn't, like, sometimes parents say to me, well, they don't talk. I say, like, what's going on in school? And they're like, and that's it. That's all they get. Especially as they get, older, like into middle school, that group. But that's okay. See, it doesn't matter. You're still getting points because you're showing interest. So what kids want is to take you for granted. That's what they want. They want to take it for granted that you're really interested and that, you care about what they're up to and you're interested in their lives and you're asking them how things are going and you're listening to their answers and, and pay attention. If there's a problem you want to talk about, pay attention to that. But I think those are the two big rules during a pandemic is sort of pay attention and care, be interested, and cut the rules a little bit loose. It's okay. This is an unprecedented situation. And I tell schools, this is not the time to really push the academic standards. This is the wrong year to do that.
Yeah.
It's just not going to help. And so I think those are the two golden rules of parenting in a pandemic. Yeah. How about that?
Thank you.
Having an anxiety attack is not going to be helpful. Not for anybody. Not for anybody.
Before we wrap up, we were wondering, is the post-pandemic playbook out already? And if not, when is it coming out?
It is out already, and it's on Amazon. And the guide for parents with the summaries and the discussion questions and everything, that will be out probably within about a week and a half. And we'll do that on social media so everybody will know where to get it. Because if we put it up on Amazon, we have to charge for it, and we don't want to charge for it. So we'll just tweet it out and post it on Facebook, and everybody can get it there. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. It was lovely to see you,
Thank you.
again. And you're a wealth of information, and we really appreciate your insights on how to support this age group. It's being parents ourselves and supporting parents, it's something that we hear a lot, and it's, this is a nice conversation to refer people to try to say it's okay to slow down. And
absolutely, not just okay, but good.
Yes,
it's good to slow down.
Right.
We were too fast even before the pandemic, so it's good to.
That's why I did this, because when you mentioned clarinet lessons and things like that, we talked about that last week, how, there's parts that we can reflect on and go, before we just bring everything back that we did before, like, let's prune that and pull back what we miss first and then adjust slowly. So.
Right. Remember that the kids have spent a year with you. They've spent a year with their families. And, for children where stability and continuity is sort of everything, you don't want to yank that time away.
Yeah.
So they go back to school and you want to make sure that you're eating dinner together every night and you're spending time together as a family on the weekends. And, that's going to be really important.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much. As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is one in a series. So next weekend, we're excited to welcome somebody that we know very well, clinician Rona Cairns, who we consult with on a weekly basis, who's going to talk to us. She has quite an extensive background working with adolescents, which may raise some antennas for people because we know it's another age group that can sometimes be challenging to know how to support, and especially during this pandemic. So we're excited to welcome. Yeah. Yes, understatement of the year.
Yeah.
So we're excited to welcome her back. Actually, she's coming for the first time, not back, but she'll be here with us next Tuesday, which is the 27th. So please join us for that. If you're watching today, we had some live streaming issues, so hopefully you get to see the show, and then it's not too late in the day. But hopefully we'll be back on schedule next week, and we hope to see you all then. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.